Good morning. If you think that our top story today is that Hunter Biden was convicted on 3 felony counts related to a gun purchase he made back in 2018 when he was addicted to controlled substances, you are mistaken. Instead, our leading story of the day is some happier news. Different courtroom, different situation. That is that Judge Robert Hinkle in Florida ruled today that the state law that banned gender-affirming care for minors and also restricted gender-affirming care for adults is unconstitutional, a violation of equal protection. Now, let me tell you a little bit more why this is such a victory. This decision is good for children, it's good for parents, it's good for doctors, and it's good for society. Kids who are experiencing gender dysphoria are supported in this decision. First, the judge made clear that gender identity is real, and people don't always have the gender associated with the sex that they are assigned, forcing kids to suffer when they could be receiving safe and effective medical treatment like puberty blockers or hormone therapy is wrong. And it's good for parents to be able to get their children the care that they need. This is also good for medical practitioners. That's because if this law were to go into effect, providing this kind of gender-affirming medical care is or would be a felony in Florida. This is also a good outcome for society. That's because, just like any other civil rights issue in our history, we can only move forward together if we recognize bias and we move beyond it and make sure to provide protection for those insular minorities in society who face discrimination in every aspect of their life. Now, let me be clear about what this decision did and what it did not do. The judge struck down almost the entire law, but did leave in place the portion of the law that would block gender-affirming surgery for minors. But the plaintiffs involved did not challenge that aspect of the bill, and that is also extremely rare. There is something the judge wrote in this decision that I found so heartwarming. It is over 100 pages, so there's a lot in there, but here are a few choice pieces. First, he said, in time, discrimination against transgender individuals will diminish, just as racism and misogyny have diminished. I like that he said diminish because we are still working on racism and misogyny, of course. Why this is also a victory is it is a rebuke to the Republican legislature as well as the Governor DeSantis of Florida, who have been using culture wars and targeting folks in the transgender community for these kinds of laws and for public shaming. And the important piece of this is all of that hate has backfired on them. In particular, the judge found that this violated equal protection and also believes that it will stand up on appeal because this law was motivated by animus. And animus has legal significance, but what it basically means is prejudice. And because this law was motivated by prejudice against transgender individuals, the judge believes that there really is no state interest that should be protected by Florida treating transgender people who are seeking this treatment differently from other people who seek hormone treatment, for example. Speaking of Florida, not every judge in the Sunshine State is as enlightened as Robert Hinkle. Take, for example, Judge Eileen Cannon, someone Mary Trump refers to as Donald Trump's personal pocket judge. What has Eileen Cannon been up to this week? Well, no good. What I mean by that is things are looking more dire in the case over which she is presiding. That case, as you may know, began last June of 2023, when special counsel Jack Smith filed an indictment against Donald Trump in connection with these documents that he took from the White House and hid and also refused to return. And these were documents that contained national security information. So he was charged with willful retention of national security information, obstruction of justice, withholding documents, and making false statements. There has subsequently been a superseding indictment, and he now has 37 felony counts against him. So the news this week is that Judge Eileen Cannon essentially dismissed or narrowed the case. She has thrown out one specific provision of the indictment describing when Donald Trump allegedly showed to a member of his political action committee a highly classified map depicting an ongoing military conflict. This allegedly happened at Bedminster. So she has thrown that out. What else has she done? Well, remember, as I just said, this case was indicted a year ago, and there still is no trial date. Last month, she indefinitely postponed the trial. And what is she doing instead? Well, next week, as we've previously have discussed, she is holding a hearing where she is permitting non-parties as well as the parties to come in and argue to her why they believe or don't believe that special counsel Jack Smith was appointed by Merrick Garland in a way that violated the U.S. Constitution. And if so, the case would be dismissed on that basis. So this is extremely important, not just because it impacts the case in Florida, but also think about it for a moment. If this judge in Florida, if Eileen Cannon determines, in her view, that Jack Smith was appointed in a way that violated, as Trump supporters are arguing, that violated the Appointments Clause of the U.S. Constitution, then Jack Smith might also be kicked off the case that is taking place in D.C. involving the election interference. She is not just throwing sand in the gears of justice when it comes to her case, but she is up to mischief that could hurt the special counsel elsewhere. Now, let's move to Crazy Town. Crazy Town is a social media cesspool inhabited by the MAGA members who are spitting out the craziest conspiracy theories about yesterday's conviction of Hunter Biden. I have seen it all, but this is absolutely nutso. Some people are saying that this is just a fig leaf, that the only reason why this case was brought was so that the Justice Department, led by Biden, even though he detaches himself from what the Justice Department is doing, that the Justice Department, as well as, the state of Georgia and the state of New York, or rather the district attorney in Manhattan and the Fulton County DA, that somehow they're all in cahoots with Biden to bring down Trump. And by sort of throwing Hunter Biden under the bus, they can pretend like no one is above the law and then unfairly persecute Donald Trump. Okay, so that's nutso. There's also another theory that it's a cover-up, that somehow they're still trying to argue that Joe Biden was somehow involved in some shady dealings with Hunter, and that really it should be Joe Biden who's prosecuted, and by getting him on this gun charge, that they're somehow distracting us from the real deal. These folks will say anything to not just attract attention, but to undermine the legal process, to undermine our democratic institutions, and to try to get Donald Trump back in office. We shouldn't fall for it. See you tomorrow.